It is Monday, June 8th, the day before Election Day for many people in the state of Georgia. If you haven't voted already, make sure that you show up to the polls tomorrow. And if you already have an absentee ballot, make sure that you drop it off at your respective drop box across your county. I am letting everyone know once again, if you haven't already, I had a voter guide that kind of lets you know on how to vote, where to vote, and questions like that. You can check it out on my newsletter at imkingwilliams.substack.com. And today I'm actually talking to someone who saw the newsletter, and she politely just told me, hey, you didn't include me on the list. I'm an independent candidate, and we're here talking today to state rep Valencia Stovall. And she is, I believe you're in District 74, correct?
Correct. Yes, that's correct.
Right, which is, I believe, like Morrow or Forest Park.
Yeah, I have currently I represent 5 portions of the cities of Morrow, Lake City, Forest Park, College Park, and Riverdale.
Okay. And I'm glad that you hit me up, because it's super important to have people like yourself who are running for office who necessarily don't always get a lot of the attention from local news around here. And so I'm glad that you hit me up. And so I want to ask first, Valencia, which is, why did you decide to run for U.S. Senate? Yes,
thank you. And I appreciate the work that you are doing with the voter guide. It's so much going on with confusion, especially with COVID-19. So I thank you, and I thank you for being responsive to making those changes. I've been elected for 8 years in the Georgia House of Representatives. And during those 8 years, I have seen where we've been putting bandages over issues that are really federal issues. When it comes down to education, housing, transportation, workforce, all of those are issues that we are tackling on the state level, but the ultimate answer has to come from the federal level. I've been able to work successfully across the aisle with my colleagues on both with Democrats and Republicans to be able to pass some meaningful legislation. And so when I looked at what's going on, even before COVID hit, I had decided to run, taking that experience and running as an independent. I'm currently a Democrat state representative, but I decided to run as an independent because the issues we are facing are people issues. They're not party issues. And as an independent, I'm able to see both sides of the issue, and I'm not tied to one particular party based on what that party says that I must vote on or the viewpoints that I must take. As a state representative, during those 8 years, bipartisan work for Clayton County, I don't know if you knew about the jet fuel tax laws that we suffered through the Federal Aviation Administration, that our county could no longer collect jet fuel tax sales money. Because of the work I had done, across the aisle, I was able to secure $45 million as a stopgap to our county until the next SPLOST came up, or till another resolution as far as legislative-wise was being able to be given.
Right.
And, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask in particular because I think a lot of people may not be super familiar or remember what you're speaking of. Can you explain to people what happened with that?
Yeah, so the Federal Aviation Administration, I just referred to this FAA, some years back had a ruling that was on the books that a local jurisdiction could not collect sales tax off of jet fuel unless they were going to spend it where they collected it. And because Clayton County is in a very unique situation where the city of Atlanta owns and operates Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, but it sits 80% in Clayton County. And so because that percentage sits in our county, we are able to collect sales tax, the 1% sales tax off of the money from the sales of the jet fuel tax, which are the airlines are purchasing jet fuel when they come in to Atlanta. And so because we don't own and operate it, the ruling says that we have to stop collecting the sales tax on that fuel money that we were receiving. And so because of that, that was going to hit our county about $10 million each year, going from the time we had to stop until we was going to have a stopgap. We were going to have a gap in our local funds that come to our county and the school system also as well.
Okay. And one of the things I also noticed was that you have been really active in just representing the part that's not really represented a lot anymore. It seems that people kind of forgot about Clayton County and just like the South Side in general. Can you talk about why you've been so vocal about representing that side?
Yes, of course, you know, as elected official, you have to live where you represent as on the state level. And because it has been forgotten about a lot of times, I decided to run even 8 years ago to be able to better serve my community using the skills that I have attained as a small business owner, being a community activist, and making sure. And then because at that time our school rating was low, and all that comes back from not having access to resources. And I knew that on the state level, we have these different departments where you can be able to access and get the resources that you need back into your community. And that's the mentality that I took into going into this particular office. For one instance I give you is Atlanta Technical College is our technical college for our region, but they did not have a satellite location in Clayton County. Through the work that I was able to do, we now, last year, was able to secure a location in Clayton County off of Highway 85 for a satellite location. When you talk about economic development and workforce, you have to have training so that people don't have to continue to earn minimum wage, but that comes with them not being properly trained. And so being able to have Atlanta Technical College in Clayton County was essential. That came again when I talked about that bipartisan work that I was able to do. The second thing is with Atlanta Farmers Market. So Atlanta Farmers Market has been in Forest Park, which is part of the area where I represent for about 50 years. And so I was able to come up with doing a House Study Committee, and I was able to be appointed as the chair. And I was on there bipartisan with Republicans and also Democrats that served on there as well. And the recommendations that we put forward to the legislative body, two of the recommendations went forward. We were able to have money placed in the budget for repairs and maintenance at the state farmers market. The second thing is that everyone always referred to it as Atlanta Farmers Market, but it sits in Clayton County. So we were able to get the name change. And if you ride by there on Forest Park, where you see they have a new sign that says Atlanta Clayton County Terminus Market that sits there now. So those are things that I've been able to do through my leadership at the state capitol as well.
Okay. And one of the things I think that's been really interesting about you and your career is that you, like you said, you've been very bipartisan about things, but also one of the things is you seem to be a woman with vision who executes on it. And so provided, you win on tomorrow to the next phase of the nomination, what would you be doing as a U.S. Senator here in Georgia?
Okay, so this particular election is a special election, so it would not be on the June the 9th ballot. This will be on the November the 3rd ballot. Mm-hmm. And with this one, there are all parties that'll be running in this election in November. So it won't be one party against the other. Everybody will be listed on there. And so one of the first things is being able to work more closely with our state and local officials and departments. Because I think one of the things we talk about economic development, which is part of our platform, is economic development and education. When you don't have that correlation between the federal, the state, and the local, somebody misses in the middle, and the missing part are usually the citizens. When you look at what happened with COVID-19, when the money was due to come down from the federal government, there was a lot of stopgap in between with it getting down and the information getting out to the citizens to knowing how to be able to access that capital. The second portion of my platform deals with education. So looking at how do we improve our education system. I serve on the education committee. I'm a vice chair of a subcommittee on education of academic achievement. And I know that training and apprenticeship is going to be the future that we need to move towards. So those are some of the things that I'll be pushing for, is establishing more internships and apprenticeships for our students, and increasing the workforce availability for adults so that they can continue to be able to earn higher wages so you can be able to improve your community. Global stewardship is the other part. We're going to have to make sure that we are connecting with international partners. And so being able to improve upon that, and how do we increase imports and exports here in Georgia with our international partners as well.
Okay. And I like what you're saying. And so I just want to ask, because it seems as if while you have really good ideas, the state of Washington is just very, very divided right now. What would you be bringing to Washington to represent the state of Georgia that's going to bring people together, especially on the lawmaker side of it?
Yes. So one of the things is that with all of the confusion, it's always using when people don't understand how the process works. And having access and awareness are the two things. And once you know what access and awareness and you know how the rules work, then you're able to access what is going to be needed in Washington, D.C. Even with the uprise, with the racial tension of things that are taking place now, and we have the protests that are going on, it still relates back to policymakers. And the policymakers understanding the need to be able to implement laws that are going to be effective. But when you're talking to the protesters, you're asking, what is that you want? And they got to be able to articulate and know exactly this is what we want and know how that whole process works. So me going to Washington, D.C., being able to take my grassroots foundation that I've been able to do, being able to work bipartisan, which means I'm able to see both sides. I'm looking in the middle, but being able to work both sides and bringing those resources back down to our community, especially the communities of Black community that have been suffering so long from not having adequate housing, not having adequate equity in education, and even not having access to capital, transportation, workforce. All of those are compounding sectors that have to be addressed. It's not just one thing in safety. It's a whole gamut of things that have to be addressed, and also bringing the people to the table to say, these are the solutions that we think that need to happen, and not just what the elected officials have to say.
Okay. And so I want to ask you as well right now, and maybe you can help myself and also potential voters to understand something. You're currently in office and you are running for a higher position, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, should you win your position, what would happen to the position you currently have?
Well, very good. And because I care so much about my community, we sought out who we think would be the best candidate, Angel Massey, to take my position in the State House in District 74. And she's someone that has been working along with me on a lot of projects I've done throughout the community, and also been down to the Capitol, even worked with me on 2 pieces of legislation that I introduced as well. One consumer protection bill, and also the other one is dealing with childhood entertainers being able to not be marked absent when they're on the set, production set. Along with some other bills, I had another bill that I passed. It was 2 bills I was able to pass during my tenure. One was HB 614, the Landon-Johnson Act, which allows video cameras to be placed in the classroom of special needs students. And the second one was dealing with designating Single Parents Day in the state of Georgia as March the 21st. When you look at the amount of single parents that we have, they don't have access to resources a lot of times. And so being able to bring that awareness and designating that day, and then working with our state departments to make sure overall across the state that those resources are coming to those parents, because they're raising those kids that don't necessarily would not have resources and availability to be able to be successful.
Okay.
Short answer is I made sure I had a replacement going to do just as well as I did, if not better, so that I can now move to this higher position.
Okay. And so one other thing I want to ask you in particular is just closing out, what is something that people don't necessarily know about your district, but that really, really is a gem about the district that you represent?
Well, the one thing that a lot of people don't know about my district, that it does sit in Clayton County, and that we have is a very diverse. My district is probably the most diverse out of all of the other House districts, and that we have very good diversity and being able to get along and work together on issues that are common, and then being respectful at the same time with each other. And I think that is an example of what Georgia is when you talk about diversity. And so you got to be able to understand the culture and the heritage of those that we're around. And that's one of the plus things about in my particular community that I represented. And that's those skills that I know that I'll be able to bring to this particular position, which is statewide. So it's not just a certain district. This is everyone in the state of Georgia can vote for Valencia Stovall they can go to my website, gostovall.com, to find out more about my campaign and what I've done in the past. Even in closing, I will, if elected, will be the first African American to serve as a U.S. Senator from the state of Georgia. I'll be the first African American woman to serve as a U.S. Senator from Georgia, and the first African American to be an independent elected from Georgia. So those are huge feats when you start talking about the history of Georgia.
Okay, I like that. And so, can you say once again, though, Representative Stovall, how can people get in contact with you? How can we find your website and things like that?
Yes. So my website is GoStovall. It's GOSTOVALL.com. And I'm on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Valencia Stovall. And actually this Friday, I'll be hosting Facebook. Every Friday I host a Facebook Live talking about current events at 6 o'clock. This week will be very special because I'll be having a conversation with my house seatmates in the House who are all Republicans. And we'll be talking about racial relations and how it fits in with us working together at the state capitol and even them beyond the state capitol. So that is my way of being able to talk about what's currently going on and what I can do as a policymaker with working with my colleagues with implementing effective policies.
Okay. And thank you once again, Representative Stovall, for taking some time out to talk to me today. If you guys haven't seen already, there is an update to the voter guide that I have. It does have Representative Stovall listed on it, and you can also click on the website from there. If you don't, I'll also have it linked here on the show notes as well. Thank you once again, Representative Stovall. And if you haven't already, please sign up for the newsletter at iamkingwilliams.substack.com. Again, iamkingwilliams.substack.com. If you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me on all social media platforms at iamkingwilliams. Thank you again.
Thank you.